Penguin Random House Audio presents The Invisible Emperor, Napoleon on Elba, From Exile to Escape. This is the author, Mark Braude. Paradise is an island. So is hell. Judith Shalansky, Atlas of Remote Islands, 2010. Lucky Napoleon, this is the most beautiful island. There is no winter in Elba. Cognac is 3 pence a large glass. The children have web feet, the women taste of salt. The island I love, and I wish I were not seeing it in one of the seasons of hell. Dylan Thomas, Postcards and Letters from Elba, Summer 1947. The island of Elba, which a year ago was thought so disagreeable, is a paradise compared to St. Helena. Napoleon on St. Helena, February 1816. Introduction. It all fell apart quite quickly. From the towers of Notre Dame and some of the higher rooftops, people watched through telescopes as invaders breached the outskirts of Paris on the night of March 29, 1814. Cossacks crouched round their campfires atop Montmartre, the sounds of their eerie music drifting down into the village below. They were toasting the death of the miller of the Moulin de la Galette, whose ravaged body was tied to one of the mill's sails. Or so went the rumor. Parisians had good cause to be terrified just then. Fearing the populace's revolutionary potential as much as any foreign force, French officials decided against distributing arms en masse, even after troops failed to hold the enemy beyond the gates. This left the city's defense to the 12,000 members of the Paris National Guard, facing a force nearly 10 times larger. Though the result would have been obvious to everyone going in, the spectacle was played out just the same. A British artist who lived in Paris, Thomas Underwood, recalled passing that bright spring day among fashionable loungers of both sexes at a popular café on the Boulevard des Italiens, sitting as usual on the chairs placed there and appearing almost uninterested spectators of the number of wounded French and prisoners of the Allies which were brought in. Each side suffered roughly 9,000 casualties, making this the deadliest battle of 1814. Napoleon's subjects wouldn't soon forget his failure to appear in the capital alongside his generals. After a year and a half of fighting across much of Europe, an Allied coalition led by Britain, Austria, Prussia, and Russia had driven French soldiers out of German territory and crossed into France. Instead of falling back to Paris, the obvious target, Napoleon had opted to dig in by the Aube River, about 100 miles east of the city, thinking he could cleave the attacking forces in two and defeat each half in succession. This had freed other Allied troops to reach Paris largely unchecked. Allied and French representatives had been trying to arrange Napoleon's surrender for months. Joseph Bonaparte warned his brother that people would turn against him as soon as they realized he preferred prolonging war to making even a disadvantageous peace. But aside from a few brief moments of armistice, Napoleon had kept fighting, forever seeking the one dramatic victory that would allow him to negotiate from a position of strength. Having risen from artillery officer to general, to first consul, to emperor of the French, on the promise of constant and glorious triumph, he feared he would be overthrown at the first sign that he was even considering bending to an opponent's demands. Napoleon had ridden for Paris as soon as he realized his mistake, switching out his exhausted horses for fresh ones borrowed along the way at intervals. But by the time he reached a post house just south of the city around midnight on March 30th, he was too late. A column of French cavalry had already arrived with news of the capitulation signed hours earlier by representatives of his trusted general and confidant, Marshal Marmont. Realizing they could avoid a wider massacre by surrendering, Parisians had rushed into the streets to welcome the occupying soldiers with shouts of "Down with the Emperor" and "Death to the Corsican." Imperial eagles and N's gave way to fleurs-de-lis, the stylized lilies of monarchy. People waved handkerchiefs of white, the traditional color of the Bourbon dynasty that had once ruled France. They brought down the statue of a laurel-crowned Napoleon that had topped the Colonnade de la Grande Armée in the Place Vendôme, built from melted-down cannons seized in the Battle of Austerlitz. His gift to the city he had promised to make the most beautiful that ever existed. After a short sulk by the side of the road, Napoleon retreated to the castle complex of Fontainebleau, nearly 40 miles to the southeast, sending his aide-de-camp, Armand de Caulaincourt, to
Sample complete. Ready to continue?